Okay, so my name is Luke Larry. I've realized that graduate students in most times have issues with how to state their problems. And so I've decided that today we look at statement of the problem briefly. Most of the times you hear students or sometimes faculty alike call problem statement as if the problem is able to state itself or state things. But you and I know that the right way to pronounce this should be statement of the problem. So today we want to look at statement of the problem briefly, and if I think it's helpful, then of course I will do other series to assist students understand this area regarding how research work is done. So normally what happens is problem statement is written after you've done your introduction, and we'll have a series to talk about how to put your introduction and your background together and the right way to be presented. Maybe offer some suggestions on how you can put it together. But when the background and the introduction are done well, then you would have identified all the problems that are in there, even though you are putting the research there in context, but you are exposing some gaps that allows you to ask questions that are not asked in the background, and later on when they are asking, the reader would have already thought of those ones because you have exposed them in your writing already. And so you identify all the problems or the possible problems in the background. And then when you get to the statement of the problem, we expect it to be just have a page. The reason is that if you have to write one full page or 2 pages in order to tell us what the problem is, then it means there is no problem. And so if there is problem, you should be able to state it clearly in even a sentence. And so half a page should be enough to put together a statement of the problem for anybody reading to understand that this is the situation that needs some measures to be taken place in order to curb it. Now, most of the times when I tell graduate students that your statement of the problem should be have a page, there's this complaint that there's word count and they have to write more, they have to elaborate in order for the reader to understand. It's not about writing so much, it's about knowing what the problem is and then knowing the context and how to put it in, and you are good to go, and not necessarily filling 2 or 3 pages that will make your problem relevant. If there's no problem, there is no problem. Yes. And so in doing this, you should cover these 4 areas that I have listed here. 1 is context, which I will talk about. 2 is issues, and then relevant is the third one, and we have objectives. You're surely not going to state them, but I will let you understand how you put this in perspectives to make sure that your statement of the problem is clearly stated, and anyone who reads it should have no doubts, unless maybe you really do not have material to put in these areas. And so this is the structure of how it should. First one I talked about is context. And now you put your problem in context. This partly would have been done in the background. You would have written to put the problem in context, but when you get to the problem statement, you need to briefly state it here. And the question that you should ask yourself in the first statement is, what do we already know? So if you're talking about a particular topic, then the question will be, what do we know in this area? What has been done? And what do people say about the area? So it's not writing pages here, just write a paragraph possibly that will answer what we already know in this area. For instance, if we're talking about diabetes and you are using this as your research area, maybe it's about treatment. What do we know about diabetes treatment? So you need to state that briefly, having your in-text citation indicating where you took this from, where we know it, and who said we know this. That should be very clear in your statement. On context. Now, number 2 is describe the precise issue that the researcher will address. Now, when you move away from what we already know as you try to put your work in context, then you go to the number 2 question, which is, what do we need to know? We know treatment of diabetes, 1, 2, 3. But are there some other things that we do not need to know? So in describing the precise issue, you tell us what we need to know. Not in a page, maybe in a paragraph. And possibly, it could be a recommendation from another study. It could be an anecdotal evidence, or possibly it could be something you have seen maybe from another research, and then you feel that they left a gap and you will want to fill. So describing the issue, you tell us, or you answer this question, what do we need to know? And then you go to number 2, the relevance. So you need to show the relevance of the problem. And now you will answer the question, why do we need to know it? So you said, we already know this. You said we need to know this. Why do we need to know that? So you need to tell us the relevance of the problem. So you'll be describing, or you'll be speaking, or you'll be talking about if we don't know what will happen. What is likely to happen if this thing persists? If you don't get the treatment for diabetes, what will happen? Are people going to die? Will it affect individuals, marriages, houses? Will it affect nations? Will it affect armies? Will it affect hospitals? You're looking at who it's going to affect. What is the relevance? So reasons why we need to know it. You need to make that clear here. And possibly with in-text citations as well. And then you go to the last one, that is objectives. Here, it's not like you are stating your research objectives, but you want to answer the question, what will you do to find out? So in this situation, you are saying that you've told us these 4 questions here. You've started by telling us that answering the question, what do we already know? You told us what we know. You went to, what do we need to know? You said, you wrote what we need to know. You went to the third one, why do we need to know it? Then you gave us reasons, the relevant. Now you are looking at objectives. What bits and pieces will we put out, or you, the researcher, will put out to get to know what we need to know? And that will answer the question, what will you do to find out? And that will be the bits and pieces, which of course, it's what we refer to as objectives. The strategies, or the pieces that you put together, or the steps you will walk through to make sure that we know what you think we have to know. And this is how a statement of the problem should look like. Looking at it in detail, normally it is expressed in a form of a dilemma. And then you're talking about a disturbing situation that needs to be investigated. So you describe a particular situation that needs to be investigated, and that can fit in one of those things that we talked about earlier on. And then it identifies the nature of the problem that is being addressed. And of course, typically, its context and significance. So you see here, we're talking about the relevance and context, which are the third point we talked earlier on, and the first point. And of course, this should include concise description of the nature of the problem. So you're talking about a discrepancy between what is and what should be. What is the current situation? What should the situation be? The desired situation. This is what we have, but this is not what is desired. We would have desired that this should have been the situation, but we don't have it yet. Its size, you want to tell us how big is it? Distribution and severity, like who is affected and consequences. Where? Since when? If there is literature to back this is what you'll be looking at and putting them together to make sure that the reader understands how big this problem is and how severe it is. Who is it affecting? You're talking about the relevant in this case. Who is it affecting? And you should present that. An analysis of the major factors that may influence the problem. And you have to present a convincing argument that available knowledge is insufficient to solve the problem. So you would have stated what we already know, and let us know that what we already know cannot bring to us what we need to know. We need to do something else to know what we want to know, because what we already know is not solving the problem. And so it means there is some solution somewhere that you are going to bring for us to be able to answer that. And so you give us a brief description of any solution that has been tried in the past, if possible, in the space, and how well they have worked, and why future research is needed. Normally, you see students tend to want to blame everybody. This work was not done well and you didn't do this. This work was not done. Of course, every research that is out there would have solved a particular purpose if it is published, because there was merit in it, and that's why they allowed it. And so you don't have to condemn it in order for yours to be accepted. Maybe it solved some problem, but it didn't solve the problem up to the desired point. Maybe it didn't solve it the way we wanted, and you think that there's still a gap, and when we get another solution in place, then we can get it to a point that we want it to be. And so don't write to condemn everybody. So describe other studies that have been done, solutions that were brought on board, and what did they do, what contribution did they place on the problem, and how far did they go, how well do you think it's still left, and what can we do to solve that. It's what you should be looking at, and not necessarily blaming and condemning every study that was brought on board that it couldn't do anything. It would have done something, but not, of course, up to an extent that we will not need any other problem. A description of type of information expected to result from the project. And briefly, you want to tell us this, what you want to do and what you are anticipating to get, and that you think that it can solve the problem that you have, we have here. So that's it. So the statement of problem should identify key variables and their interrelationships. So you should be able to put some key variables that you want to look at. Maybe if it is in quantitatives, then you'll be talking about the independent and the dependent variables, how the relationships are going to be looked at in this case, and to make sure that things are done and done well. So I would say this is how you should put up your statement of the problem. And if you understand, especially the 4 questions, you should take them serious, be able to look at them, and when you finish your statement of the problem, see whether every question, those 4 questions, you have answered them. If you see you've not answered some of them accurately, then you should go back and look for material to adjust that area and be able to answer them well. Thank you very much. And so this has been Luke Larry, trying to help graduate students succeed in their research work. Thank you.